So human body and anatomy, again, this should be a review for y'all, but we're going to go through this relatively quickly. So we got levels of organization, okay? Remember, in the basic unit of life is the cell. And so you can start at the cell, you can even start below the cell, where you go atoms and the molecules. And the macromolecules, remember the macromolecules are 4, proteins, lipids, carbohydrates, and nucleic acids. But then from there, you go into organelles and then cells. And then cells working together to form tissues. Tissues form together to form organs, and then organ systems. And then above organ systems are what? Nope. If you have a bunch of organ systems, they all work together, they form what? The body, yeah, organism. The organism. And then we have a lot of organisms that all interact with one another. We call that a population. And then you have a bunch of different populations all working together. Not ecosystem yet. It's called a community. But then, to get the ecosystem, you have to actually include both the abiotic and the biotic. So not only is it the deer and the skunks and the snakes, it's also the deer, the skunks, the snakes, the trees, and the rocks and the water and the temperature and the pressure. Okay, that's ecosystem. Okay. So the purpose of these 11 organ systems is to maintain homeostasis. What does homeostasis mean? Stay the same. So if you break it down, homeo means same, stasis means to stay, so staying the same. Like Han Solo getting frozen into that stasis and the chunk of carbonite, that's stasis. He's staying the same. Okay. True. On Star Wars. All right. So here's the 11 systems. These are the 11 that we went through last time. Yep. And so if y'all notice down there, it says lymphatic system as well as the immune system. We use those terms interchangeably. The immune system primarily, a lymphatic system is actually very specific about using the lymphatic ducts. The immune system is a much more general term, looking at both the cells as well as the system itself.
He just said something that broke my brain. He said, what if we're really cells of something?
What if we're the cells of a bigger organism?
All right, next one, digestive system. So just like she was describing, the digestive system is to convert food particles. So you eat, nom nom nom. It goes down your esophagus into your stomach, from your stomach to your small intestine, from your small intestine to your large intestine, from your large intestine out the back door. All the purpose of that is to break it down to get the nutrients out so that you can make more of you. Okay? Because you can take you and break you down into 4 macromolecules: proteins, lipids, nucleic acids, and carbohydrates. So you take everything you eat, you can then break those down into those 4 substances. Okay. So you have the mouth. The mouth does both chemical and physical reactions. Okay. It does physical because it goes it chews it. But also your saliva, like she was talking about, if you put crackers in your mouth and you leave them there, the crackers at the very beginning taste salty or bland. And eventually those crackers will taste sweet. Your body can completely digest a cracker in your mouth. Because not only do you chew it, but there's saliva, and then saliva, there's an enzyme in there called amylase, and amylase breaks down carbohydrates. It's like under 5 minutes. It's not not a long time, and since normal digestion takes at least 2 to 3. Just hold it in your mouth. Your amylase will start reproducing from your saliva. Amylase takes all those starches, and starches are glucose plus glucose plus glucose plus glucose plus glucose plus glucose, and they break those bonds down through the process of hydrolysis. Remember, water splitting, it's going to bring it in, it's going to pull that glucose away. And so that sweet taste is because what you're tasting is the glucose being released. No longer is it a complex sugar, a starch, it's now a simple sugar of glucose. We did it last year. I have some. If you remind me, we can probably do something like it. I've got little oyster crackers. The esophagus. The esophagus is merely just a pipe. Now, it's a little more than just a pipe. Everyone take your finger like this. Okay, take your other hand like this. And you're going to wrap it around like that. All right? Now, here's the way your food goes down your pipe, your esophagus. Lift your pointer finger up. Lift your middle finger up. Okay, now take your pointer finger down, and then as you put your pointer finger down, you pick up your ring finger. And as you put your middle finger down, you pick up this. So it does like this. Okay? This is how your stomach pushes food down. It's called peristalsis. What's it called? Peristalsis. So your stomach, your esophagus can squeeze the food down. So yes, gravity helps pull it down, but it also gets pushed itself down, just like when you squeeze toothpaste out from the bottom of the tube of the toothpaste. Stomach. Stomach primarily is there to break down food chemically. It does have a strong acid in the pH range of 2. Remember, water is 7, so you're looking very, very, very acidic. And once the food is broken down, the stomach makes the digestive juices. It's called chyme. Chyme. Not chime. Chyme. Pancreas within this also produces the insulin. Not only does it produce insulin, so that ye who are diabetic, your pancreas somehow is not working correctly. Either you produce insulin, it's not getting to your body, or your pancreas isn't producing it. But it also helps neutralize stomach acid. The liver, lovely large organ that goes basically from one side of your body to the other, really large. It does produce bile, and bile breaks down fats. The gallbladder, it's a lovely green color. It stores bile for future use, so your liver produces it, your gallbladder holds on to it, just like the little Albertsons shopping bag you have. A little shopping bag, a little reusable bag. The gallbladder stores bile. Small intestine. Anyone eating tripa? Yes? No? Tripa? It's a Mexican food. But what it is an intestine that has been fried. It's cow intestine, and it looks, tripa. It looks like I don't know. It's weird to describe. But basically, what the small intestine does, it's got these little finger-like projections called villi, and those villi are there to help absorb nutrients. Because think of it, if you had which one's going to have a larger surface area? Something like that. It's a nice square cuboidal area, all right? Or something that has this. Which one's going to have more surface area? A or B? A. Okay? Because not only is it length times width times height, just cube, right? It's length times width times height for every single of those peaks and valleys. All right? So the surface area increases. If we increase the surface area, that means the absorption increases as well. And then finally you have the large intestine. The large intestine basically takes all the water out and makes stool. As she said, her 15-year-old self was not so nice about that. Yeah. All right. Digestive system. There is it all in its full glory. Lovely picture. So again, y'all tell me what's going on as we go through. What's here? All right. The mouth. What's the mouth doing? Chewing and? Breaking down with amylase, saliva. What is the action that's pulling this food down here?
Gravity and those little muscle things.
Yeah, the muscle thing. What do we call that? The thing. It's called peristalsis. Peristalsis. All right. In the peristalsis, pushes down to the stomach. In the stomach, we have what? The acid. Okay? We're not in the liver yet. We have the acid. The acid starts breaking down chemically. Okay? And then we've got the pancreas and the liver. The pancreas and the liver both secrete what? The B word? Bile. Bile helps break down. That bile is also stored in the gallbladder. The pancreas also produces what? Insulin. So since the pancreas is producing a hormone, what system is it also attached to? The endocrine system. Very good. So the endocrine system. So not only does the pancreas produce for the digestive, it also produces for the endocrine. What will we find lots of little finger-like projections here in the small intestine? Yeah, what? The villi. The villi absorb all the nutrients. It goes into the bloodstream, so that's where it touches to the circulatory system. And then out of the small intestine into the, what's that? The large intestine. And large intestine basically absorbs what? Primarily just water. Y'all remember appendicitis? That's a vestigial structure right there. Y'all see all the things could get trapped right there? It exits the small intestine right here. It wants to go up this way, but sometimes things get stuck here. When they get stuck there, your body can't break it down. And it sits there and it basically causes inflammation, and then you get appendicitis. Again, that's a vestigial structure. We don't use that anymore, so you can remove it. So again, large intestine, and then eventually goes out the rectum, and that would be the waste. Excretory system. So if we're breaking down food, then that means we're going to remove that food and all the waste product. And not only is it the food waste product, but also stuff that's in our blood, as well as other waters and salts. So first thing you have your kidneys. You have two, but they're both important. If you're missing one, you do get sicker easier because your blood stays dirtier longer. Your kidneys are there to filter out urea, which is urine. It's a chemical in the urine. That's that stink you get out of the urine. So this is how the excretory system relates to the circulatory system, because the circulatory system brings the blood to the kidneys filter out the blood, and then puts new blood back in. That then travels through the ureter to the urinary bladder. You have two ureters, and you have one urethra. Unless you're a dolphin. You have two urethras.
Why do they have two?
Because they have a split penis. A couple other organisms do. And then also the rectum. The rectum is the end of the large intestine. All this should be reviewed, yes? 3, 2. Another way we remove salts and water is through the skin as sweat. So the skin actually is a part of the excretory system as well as being itself in the integumentary system. And then finally the lungs. Remember, carbon dioxide is toxic to our bodies, and so we have to remove those, and those are removed through the lungs as well when we exhale. Girls, y'all want to know the reason why pregnant ladies have to pee all the time? No. You totally want to know why. I'm going to tell you right now. Yeah, here is the uterus. All right. Here is the bladder. All right. And as the uterus gets bigger, what happens to the bladder? It gets smaller. And then when that baby decides to turn or kick a leg out or put an elbow down, it puts that elbow down directly onto the bladder. That's an issue. All right? So, guys, when your wife becomes pregnant, be nice and carry a styrofoam. No. Actually, one of my books told me, make sure you always carry a styrofoam cup just in case she needs to. My wife said, if you told me to pee in a styrofoam cup, I will divorce you right there. I don't care if I'm pregnant. All right? No, but be nice and be understanding that they can't control their bladder at that point.
But if you're in public, you can.
Well, yeah. Alrighty. You want to watch a little movie?
What I call our spelling Now that's school record I could go for. Thanks. Wanda would be so impressed. Here at United Digestion, we believe in breaking things down. We start with the raw material in the food, put it in the mouth, and use the finest teeth in the world to tear, grind, and crush it into pieces small enough to swallow. Then the food gets pushed down the esophagus line into stomach central, where we add acids and other chemicals to break the food down and dissolve it into a liquid. And that's only half what we do here at United Digestion. Man, when it comes to digestion, Arnold doesn't mess around.
You haven't seen anything yet.
You mean there's more?
Mm-hmm.
All right, Arnold! If this doesn't impress her, nothing will. How many more to go, Liz? One more and I break the school record for pens stuffed into a pocket protector. Ah! What's that? Poor Arnold. Looks like he's got a hole in his stomach.
Not a hole, Keisha. A valve. The doorway to his small intestine.
It's called a sphincter, by the way. What is the stomach lined in? It is an organ, but what is it lined around? What's around the outside?
Bone.
No, not bone. Type of tissue. What type of tissue? What's causing that? What? Muscle. Your stomach and your heart are very, 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 very muscular. Your heart to the point of actually being completely muscle. The stomach, because it does have all those extra digestive enzymes, those kind of things, it does have more than just muscle. But yeah, that's called a sphincter, by the way.
Yeah, well, it just swallowed it up. Hey, why hasn't the gum been
Didn't sign out.
digested?
A few things are too tough to be broken up and dissolved.
Like school buses, right?
There's only one way to find out. Here we go!
What are those little finger things? The villi.
It looks like scuba world.
Welcome to the small intestine, the next step in digestion.
I don't get it. The food's been dissolved, digested, whatever. What else is left to do?
As I always say, Ralphie, digested is not delivered. Anyone for a dip?
Go swimming in Arnold's digestive juice? Not me, no way. How was I supposed to know she'd have digestive juice scuba gear? Isn't this the coolest? Hey, there's the gun! I'll be right back. Hey, look at this! The dissolved food is disappearing into these rubber cactus type things.
They're called villi.
Cool. They're soaking up the food like a sponge.
But where did it go?
Here at United Digestion, what we digest, we deliver. As the villi in the small intestine soak up the nutrients in the food, the nutrients are transferred into the bloodstream. And the bloodstream delivers the nutrients to all parts of the body. Because here at United Digestion, we believe in turning food into fuel.
All right. Respiratory system. And the goal here is to bring in oxygen. Why do we need oxygen?
So our body will function.
Yeah, but why?
So our brain.
No. You do need oxygen for your brain. But what process have we studied that needs oxygen?
Photosynthesis. Circulatory system.
It produces oxygen through photosynthesis.
Oh,
Respiration. There you go. Good job. So yeah, you need respiration because remember I told you about how glucose. Remember we're in glucose and glucose through glycolysis. We're going to break down the glucose into pyruvate, and the pyruvate wants to go into the mitochondria because that's where the cool kids hang out. So describe it as the club, all right? We're in the club. But the only way we're going to build in the club is we have to bring our buddy what? Oxygen. So we're like, hey, oxygen, let's go. So we get to actually go in the club. And then we go into the Krebs cycle, and Krebs cycle kicks all the bad things out, like CO2. And then from the CO2, the Krebs cycle, we go down to the ETC. That's like the cool little lofted area. And the ETC is where all our ATP hangs out. It's lots of letters, isn't it? Right? But no, that's why you need oxygen. Not only do you get oxygen in, you also breathe oxygen out. You have a diaphragm that controls all this. But it breathes in your nose. You really should breathe through your nose, not your mouth. Your nose has mucus. It also warms it. It also has little hairs. Your hairs are actually there to help you, not just to annoy you. Your pharynx is a passageway for both your air and your food. Hence why you can, when you talk with your mouth full, you could choke because it doesn't know which way to open up the valve. Okay, it's a two-way valve, so it can either go down into the lungs or it can go into your esophagus. Your larynx is your voice box, and those are your vocal cords. That, right there, you remember earlier we talked about like Neanderthals? That's the reason why they couldn't speak. They didn't have the development of a larynx. All right, and then the trachea is the windpipe, also known as the windpipe. It's connects your pharynx to your lungs. And that we have what's called an epiglottis, and that covers your trachea, one more protection form for entering food. And then you got your nose and your mouth. Your mouth and nose connect to your trachea. Your trachea then connects down to what's called the bronchial tubes. You have two of those because you have two lungs. If you have bronchitis, itis means inflammation of. That's where the inflammation is. That's why if you do that cough, right? Yeah, just like that. I just got some mucus up. What it's doing is it's that irritation, that inflammation within the bronchial. That's why it hurts so bad when you cough like that, because you're literally tearing up that section of your respiratory system. Yeah.
I've heard one time that make us worldwide.
So the bronchia then goes into your lungs. In your lungs, you have these little sacs. Okay, you have these little sacs, the alveoli. I don't know if it's true or not. Which are like grapes. So here's what you got. You've got these little. So the bronchial tubes go into these little grape-like sacs. Now these grape-like sacs are covered by capillaries. Okay, those capillaries are all over these grape-like sacs. And these capillaries are thin-walled vessels. And so this is a place for gas exchange. And then finally, the diaphragm is a muscle. When your diaphragm relaxes, just like how if your muscle relaxes, so if you go down, your diaphragm gets flatter. It's when it contracts is when it pushes up. Okay, so your lungs don't actually breathe, don't move in and out. It's your diaphragm that moves in, up and down. Okay, that's what secretion is up. So there's your respiratory system. So again, y'all can see the little alveoles here. You can also see how we have oxygen and blood coming in, oxygen and blood going out. You notice there are different lobes. So you can actually lose a lobe and still be okay. Not awesome, but be okay. When you are a smoker, right here the trachea has little hairs. Those hairs get weighted down by the smoke, and they actually break off. And so then all that smoke goes and it sits in your alveoli, and those alveoli will start to fill up with gunk, and then and you get lung disease and things like that.
So your esophagus and your trachea are connected?
Yes, the esophagus actually runs in the anterior section. So in the front, no, esophagus is in the back.
So
The trachea is in the front.
places?
Yeah, esophagus goes down to your stomach, and your trachea goes to your lungs. Ready?
No.
All right, circulatory system, that's your blood system. So just like on the video, they talked about the idea of the trucks moving by. If you need to ship anything anywhere, it's going to go through the circulatory system for the most part. So it starts with the heart. The heart is a four-chambered muscle. Specifically, cardiac muscle. You have three different types of muscles: smooth, skeletal, and cardiac. Cardiac is found in the heart. So if you have cardiac arrest, that basically means stopping of the cardiac muscle. So a heart attack. It pumps deoxygenated blood to the heart, and then it's oxygenated, and then it goes back to the heart, and then it pumps oxygenated blood to the body. Okay, there are valves between each of the chambers. Yeah, if your kidneys fail, your kidney's job is to filter out the waste out of your blood. If you have no kidneys or lack of kidneys, then that waste stays in your blood. It doesn't ever become urea and never into urine. So people that have kidney disease or have bad kidneys or something, they go on what's called dialysis, and what that does is it actually pulls the blood out. They clean it, they filter it out, and then they put it back into their body. And they pull more blood out, filter it, and put it back in the body. Kidney stones are most time collection of minerals, like calcium or something like that, that's actually in your kidneys. And so kidney stones are essentially, if you don't have enough water, those minerals will collect. And then the kidney stones are the same as bladder stones. It's just basically, are they in the kidneys or in the bladder? Yes. Primarily sodas, but tea has a lot of it. All right, so then we have arteries and veins. Again, what I tell you to remember about arteries?
Arteries go away from the heart.
Yeah, because arteries start with A. So again, arteries carry blood away. Veins carry blood back to the heart, away from the major organs. So again, veins will have low oxygen. The capillaries are small, very, very, very thin tubed areas where gas exchange occurs. This is where oxygen and carbon dioxide come in and out. And then finally, the blood is actually made of three different parts. You've got your red blood cells. They're red because they contain iron. Just like how when you leave your bike outside in the rain and it rusts, that iron that made the bicycle is filled with oxygen now. It's oxygenated. It's oxidized. And so it turns red, just like how your blood turns red and oxygen. White blood cells are for the immune system, and then platelets help with clotting. And then finally, your spleen helps filter out a lot of the toxins in your blood. Little fun fact, your spleen, when you go under anesthesia, your spleen actually gets really, 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 really hard to the point I can actually just snap it in half. Just because it does filter all the junk out of your body, and so when you get anesthesia, it's actually just a bunch of junk going into your body.
I didn't know the spleen was a thing.
Here's your circulatory system. Notice there are 4 different chambers in the heart. I don't expect you to know the transfer of those chambers. But I do want you to notice that the heart, or the circulatory system, goes all over the place. Again, because it allows for any kind of you need to transfer anything, you put in the circulatory system, put in a cell, it goes by. Do you recognize things like the aorta? Okay. The aorta is the largest artery. Y'all ever heard about someone cutting their jugular? That's right here. Okay. Yeah. So when you process animals, you cut the jugular to bleed them. There's actually a transverse jugular. You actually cut right here, and it'll actually cause all the blood to bleed out. You do it, yeah. So like if you ever field dress a deer or something like that, you hang them upside down, and you cut the jugular there, and it'll empty all the blood out, because the blood actually will cause the meat to get ruined.
When we exhale. Now, when you think of the respiratory system, the first thing that you probably think of is the lungs. But some animals can take in oxygen without lungs by a process called simple diffusion, which allows gases to move into and pass through wet membranes. For instance, arthropods have little pores all over their bodies that just sort of let oxygen wander into their body, where it's absorbed by special respiratory structures. Amphibians can take in oxygen through their skin, although they also have their lungs or gills to help them respire, because getting all your oxygen by way of diffusion takes freaking forever. So why do we have to have these stupid lung things instead of just using simple diffusion? Well, a couple of reasons. For starter, the bigger the animal, the more oxygen it needs, and a lot of mammals are pretty big. So we have to actively force air into our lungs in order to get enough oxygen to run our bodies. Also, mammals and birds are warm-blooded, which means that they have to regulate their body temperatures, and that takes many, many calories, and burning those calories requires lots of oxygen. Finally, in order for oxygen to pass through a membrane, the membrane has to be wet. So for a newt to take oxygen in through its skin, the skin has to be moist all the time, which, for a newt isn't a big deal, but, I don't particularly want to be constantly moist. Do you? Fish need oxygen too, of course, but they absorb oxygen that's already dissolved in the water through their gills. If you've ever seen a fish gill, you'll remember that they're just sort of a bunch of filaments of tissue layered together. This gill tissue extracts dissolved oxygen and excretes the carbon dioxide. Still, there are some fish that have lungs, like lungfish, which we call lungfish because they have lungs, and that's actually where lungs first appeared in the animal kingdom. All animals from reptiles on up respire with lungs deep in their bodies, basically right behind the heart. So while us more complex animals can't use diffusion to get oxygen directly, our lungs can. Lungs to pick up more oxygen and unload CO2 before it goes back to the heart and starts the whole cycle over again. So even though the heart does all the heavy lifting in the circulatory system, the lungs are the home base for the red blood cells, the postal workers that carry the oxygen and the CO2. Now the way that your circulatory system moves the blood around is pretty nifty. Remember when I was talking about air moving from high pressure to low pressure? Well, so does blood. A 4-chambered heart, which is just one big honking beast of muscle, was set up so that one chamber, the left ventricle, has very high pressure. In fact, the reason it seems like the heart is situated a little bit to the left of center is because the left ventricle is so freaking enormous and muscly. It has to be that way in order to keep the pressure high enough that the oxygenated blood will get out there. From the left ventricle, the blood moves through the aorta, giant tube, and then through the arteries, blood vessels that carry the blood away from the heart to the rest of the body. Arteries are muscular and thick-walled to maintain high pressure as the blood travels along, As arteries branch off to go to different places, they form smaller arterioles, and finally, the very little capillary beds, which through their huge surface area facilitate the delivery of oxygen to all of the cells in the body that need it. Now, the capillary beds are also where the blood picks up CO2. So from there, the blood keeps moving down the pressure gradient through a series of veins. These do the opposite of what the arteries did. Instead of splitting off from each other, they become smaller and smaller. Little ones flow together to make bigger and bigger veins to carry the deoxygenated blood back to the heart. The big difference between most veins and most arteries is that instead of being thick-walled and squeezy, veins have thinner walls and have valves that keep the blood from flowing backwards, which would be bad. This is necessary because the pressure in the circulatory system keeps dropping lower and lower until the blood flows into two major veins. The first is the inferior vena cava, which runs pretty much down the center of the body and handles blood coming from the lower part of your body. And the second is the superior vena cava, which sits on top of the heart and collects the blood from the upper body.
Okay. So you'll see how the circulatory system and the respiratory system very, very tightly compacted together. And again, remember, it's not just gases that the blood carries, it carries all your nutrients as well. But you see the need for two lungs because, again, like you said, since we do a lot of work, we need to have lots of energy, and you need that oxygen to do the process of cellular respiration. Nervous system. Nervous system is basically made of brain, spinal cord, and nerves. And basically the nerves, all it is just a bunch of spinal cord. Or, sorry, the spinal cord, all it is a bunch of nerves. And you remember domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species? Domain, eukarya. Kingdom, animalia. Phylum, chordata. So if it has a nerve cord, then it is in phylum chordata. And this is how we respond to internal and external environments. So yes, the brain is your control center. Consists of your cerebrum and cerebellum, spinal cord, and then your nerves. Ready? A little body motion. Ready? Take your hands like this. Everybody. Everybody. Take your hands like this. Okay? Take your hands like this. Put your hands like this. Alright, essentially this is the size of your brain. Okay? Yeah, about that size. It's about 3 pounds big. Actually, take your fingers, go like this. Actually, where they go inside. No, this is your brain. Watch a little. About the same size. Yeah. Alright, so your brain's about this size. It's a little bigger. But it's about 3 pounds. It's essentially the consistency of Jell-O and tofu. So when you go like this, ow, don't do that. When you go like that, you're basically jostling Jell-O and tofu all around. Hence the idea of concussions. You go like this into someone else in a football helmet. It's probably a bad thing. Okay, so you have this right here. Okay, everyone got like that, right? Okay, y'all see right here the little fist of your, right where your thumbs are? Right here? We call this the cerebellum. Can y'all see how it might look like a bell? Things down. Ding dong, sing song, cerebellum, ring dong. Anyways, the cerebellum is for coordination and breathing. So when you run and you get hit and you fall backwards on the gym floor like I did, and I lost consciousness, and I got up after a little bit, and I walked around, I walked like this. When I was like in high school. Yeah. Crazy, right? So there's cerebellum, ding dong ding. That is there for coordination and balance. So that's also the reason why when people are intoxicated, their coordination and balance is off as well, because one of the things alcohol does is it actually affects your cerebellum. Up here in the middle, right here, the big part, it's called the cerebrum. Cerebrum? Hi, cerebrum. That's called the cerebrum, and that is where most of the other processing of your brain goes. Your arms are your spinal cord, so it's kind of like, just more like that. All right. Now, y'all heard this idea of left brain controls the right side of the body, the right brain controls the left side of the body? The reason why is if you open up your hands like this, notice your fingers are crossed, because that's what your brain does. The nerves on this side cross over to this side, control this side of the body. The nerves on this side, the nerves on this side cross over, control this side of the body. Weird, right? I don't know why, but it's just it's evolutionary. Just go with it. All right. So that's your brain. 3 pounds. Awesome stuff. Next hand. Everyone take your hand like this. Don't write it down yet. 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 Take your hand like this. Everyone. Brother. Nathan. Hand like this. All right. Nerves. Here's a nerve. Anyone seen this?
I like nerves.
All right, here's your nerves. Wiggle your dendrites. Now, I mean, wiggle your dendrites. There you go, your fingers. Yeah, these are your dendrites, okay? This right here is your cell body. Everyone touch your cell body? Your cell body? Your cell body? All right, good. This is where you would find every single part of your cell. Your mitochondria, your nucleus, your ribosomes, your endoplasmic reticulum, your lysosomes, your Golgi apparatus, your vesicles, all those fun things right there. All right? So what are these called?
Things that almost
Dendrites. Cell body, and this is your axon. You'll notice your axon is very, very long. The dendrites. Okay, here's how you talk. If you're a nerve, here's how you talk. Can I borrow someone's nerve? All right, here's how you talk. Turn your nerve this way. Okay. Talk to the dendrites. All right, so I'm gonna send signals over to David's nerve. All right. So I want to talk to someone else. Nerve talk. Nerve talk. You gotta talk nerve to. You gotta talk dendrite to axon. All right. Nerve talk. Now you notice that you do not touch. Now, if you are touching them, you're not nerve talking. You will have a misfire. All right. You gotta talk like this. Y'all see what I've got? This is what we call a synapse. Okay. A synapse is the connection. Is the gap between our dendrites and our axons.
it does nothing.
Yeah. Because they're sending chemical signals back and forth. All right. So again, what are our fingers? Are what? Dendrites. This is the cell body, and this is the axon. What's this part down here called? This part, the ding dong? Cerebellum. Good. All right, y'all write down some stuff. Endocrine system. This is your control mechanism. If the nerve system does a response, this is what it tells it to do. So if you see some guy jumping out of the woods, it's got a knife.
Oh my god.
Yeah. All right. That would be the endocrine system causing your heart to go bloop, 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 and you're going like that. That's your endocrine system because those are hormones. Yeah, exactly. And here's the even crazier thing. If your nervous system sends nerve impulses are really, really quick, very quick. They go away. The reason why when someone jumps out of the woods, it goes and you're scared. That scared feeling stays in your body for a long time because hormones last for a long time. They stay in your body, in your blood.
So what's a reflex?
If y'all know this, not only are we controlling things like the hypothalamus controls your internal heat regulation, but also your pineal body, your pituitary gland, but also controlling things like your adrenal gland, which not only does it produce adrenaline, it also produces water control. But you're also looking at things like the pancreas, so this is glucose breakdown, and also you got your testes and your ovaries. So we're hitting basically every system with the endocrine system. Oh yeah, we got 2 more videos.
Ever wonder why both coffee and alcohol have the unfortunate tendency to make you pee? Well, aside from the fact that you may have binge drinking both of these substances, hopefully not at the same time, there are actually some simple biological processes at work when nature decides to call. Your pituitary gland, which resides at the base of the brain, controls the release of a hormone known as antidiuretic hormone, or ADH for short. ADH is secreted by the pituitary gland, enters the bloodstream, and is then carried to the kidney. The kidney, among other...
Real quick, any hormone that's produced enters the bloodstream. So it's not just specific ADH, that's why I'm showing this.
The things responsible for monitoring how much water is in your body and whether or not you can afford to get rid of it. In times of dehydration, this ADH is responsible for retaining water in your body by inducing the production of aquaporins in the kidney. Aquaporins are proteins embedded in the kidney cell membrane that regulate the flow of water, in this case allowing water to be reabsorbed back into the body. So with less water, you got more ADH, which means greater production of aquaporins and more water reabsorbed. So instead of letting you pee it out, you keep it in. Think of it like a glass of water when you're really thirsty. The aquaporins act like a straw and allow for the water to flow back into your body. More straws equals more water reabsorbed. So what does ADH have to do with caffeine or alcohol? Well, both caffeine and alcohol inhibit the release of ADH by the pituitary gland, and as a result, the aquaporins are not created to reabsorb water, and the amount of water in your pee increases. This explains why once you've had your morning coffee or at least a couple beers on the patio, a pee break is usually soon to follow. And In the case of alcohol, this inhibition of ADH unfortunately contributes to something known as a dam hangover. This also explains why urine can seem clear during consumption and look like Tropicana orange juice the next morning. Are you sure you want coffee, Frank? That's better.
Whether you're waiting for an exam, about to start an important presentation, or at the start of a race, we've all experienced nervousness. But why do we get nervous? And could looking at professional athletes help us understand how to effectively cope with it? In stressful situations, your brain sends a signal from the pituitary gland all the way to the kidneys where your adrenal gland resides. And this is where adrenaline is released. You felt it before. The rapid heart rate, dilating pupils, and increased circulation in your muscles. It's all part of the fight or flight response, which developed in our evolutionary history to help us survive. But this response isn't all or nothing. There are degrees of reaction according to the perceived threat or importance you attach to the outcome. So something like an interview, which presents a challenge, stimulates the same biological reaction that a threat to your life does, just to a smaller degree. Feel those nervous butterflies in your stomach? This is because adrenaline helps redirect blood and energy to the most important parts of your body during stress, like the heart and muscles, and away from your digestive system, causing the blood vessels to close around your stomach, leading to that tingling sensation. So, how do professional athletes handle the stress and nerves? The concept of mental imagery is a widely used method in popular sport. With cognitive-specific imagery, an athlete simply imagines themselves practicing a technique or skill before competing or training. And while it may sound crazy, this actually stimulates the relatively used by athletes to feel more confident. Again, by simply imagining themselves as focused, tough, and having positive thoughts prior to competition, athletes are able to improve performance and overcome nerves. Confidence, in particular, is a consistent factor that distinguishes successful athletes from others and a major focus for professional coaches. So, next time you feel those nerves kick in, try preparing like an Olympian would. What are you waiting for? On your mark, get set, go! Don't forget, we have a new video out every day during the Olympics. Can't wait. Our amazing partners at the CBC already have 5 of the videos up now for you to binge on. Just head to cbc.ca/olympics/sciences to watch them before anyone else. Link in the description.
Alright, a couple more. So there's your skeletal system and all the major bones in your human body. Muscular system. Muscular system. Muscular system. Its job is to take the skeleton, and move it. Okay. It also helps circulate blood through the body. So the muscles actually do help pressure the blood through your body. And muscle cells are very fibrous, and fibrous means they come in long bands. So whenever you draw muscles, you always draw them in long bands. And you remember we had those specialized cell structures, and they had the little actin muscles between the two? You remember drawing that? No. I do. Those are the ones that we're going to be able to move back and forth and contract and relax and contract and relax. Okay? So you have major muscles like the biceps and the triceps, and they work in pairs. Okay? So the biceps and the triceps work in the pairs. So I would flex my biceps, but I don't want to scare you all because of the gun show. But when you flex your bicep, the bicep gets larger, okay? It's like excessively large on mine. But when you flex your bicep, the tricep gets longer, and then when you relax your bicep, your tricep gets shorter. Because the contraction on one side causes relaxation on the other side. But then you contract on the other side, it causes relaxation on the other side. So they work in pairs. Same thing as the triceps, your glutes, and your hamstrings. There. Last one, immune system. The purpose is to remove infectious diseases and other pathogens from your body. Basically, it's made up of essentially either a primary immune system and a secondary defense line. Okay? So your primary defenses are your walls, i.e. your skin. Your secondary defenses are your little people that hang out by the cannons and attack those that attack you. So your skin is your walls. It's essentially, if you have skin, you should be healthy, other than putting things in your mouth and your nose and your eyes. But if it does get in, then you have things like white blood cells, phagocytes, immune response systems, things like that. Okay.
Recently, there's been a lot of talk about measles. What does measles actually do? And should you vaccinate against it? Or is this just hysteria? Measles is a virus, a hull of proteins, RNA, plus some more proteins for reproduction. It cannot reproduce by itself, it needs a host cell to do so. To understand measles, we have to understand the immune system. You might already have seen the visual system we developed to help here. Now, let's focus on the parts of the immune system relevant to measles. The measles virus enters humans through the nose, mouth, or eyes. The measles infection starts in the lungs. Measles is especially good at infecting the body's first line of defense, macrophages, powerful guard cells that protect the lungs from intruders. They enter a cell and take it over. The virus reprograms the cell and transforms it into a dangerous virus production center. Once a cell is filled with viruses, they leave the crippled cell and begin the cycle over again. But the immune system has powerful weapons against virus infections, natural killer cells. These cells basically patrol the body and check other cells for infections. If they find an infected cell, they order it to commit suicide. This is so effective that for the first 10 days or so, you will not even notice that you're infected with measles. And now, the reason why measles is so powerful. After a period of fighting and dying, macrophages alert the brain of the immune system, the dendritic cells. The job of the dendritic cells is to collect samples of intruders, travel to the lymph nodes, and then activate the heavy weapons that eradicate the infection very fast in a team effort. But the measles virus uses a dreadful tactic. It infects the dendritic cells and uses them as a Trojan horse to enter deeper into the body. The infected cells travel to the next lymph node to alert other immune cells. Once it arrives, the measles virus spreads around the virgin T and B cells and infects them. It attacks the very system that evolved to fight it. Now, things happen very fast. The lymph system spreads the virus everywhere and it enters the bloodstream, infecting cells while traveling. Measles infects organs like the spleen, the liver, the intestines, and most importantly, the lungs. The symptoms range from a very high fever, headache, sickness, bronchitis, and of course, a rash. In the lungs, the immune system was doing pretty okay, but now millions of viruses attack a second time and kill countless cells, wiping out the defense systems. In this phase, you start coughing out millions of measles viruses. Measles is so contagious at this stage that if you meet someone who isn't vaccinated, there's about a 90% chance you'll infect them. Without a protective army in the lungs, other bacteria or viruses that would usually not stand a chance can now enter the lungs and develop into harmful parallel infections that can cause pneumonia, the most common way to die from measles. Your body's immune system is now seriously wounded. Various protective systems are hurt and disrupted. The virus spreads everywhere, infecting the skin all over the body. The typical measles rash now becomes visible. And in some cases, the measles virus reaches the brain and causes a brain infection. If it does so, the chances of dying are between 20 to 40%, and there may be long-term damage. But your body is far from giving up at this stage, and it fights back aggressively. Some dendritic cells survive long enough to activate the antivirus forces of the body. Plasma cells in the lymph nodes start producing billions of antibodies, tiny proteins that mark infected cells for destruction or clump the virus together.
Those are your
Killer
antibodies.
T cells flood the body and kill infected cells left and right. After 2 to 3 weeks, the body usually gets the upper hand and overwhelms the infection. But the immune system is now seriously weakened and may take weeks or months to recover, leaving the body vulnerable to other diseases. But if you make it, you are now immune. The immune system remembers the virus forever. Measles is no joke. Although 84% of all humans are vaccinated against measles, 122,000 people died because of the infection in 2014. Some people cannot get vaccinations, either because they're too young, because of chemotherapy or HIV, or because they're allergic to the vaccine. They need the rest of us to stop the disease for them. The measles vaccination is safe, cheap, and available. There are no benefits from having measles at all. You don't strengthen your immune system, and it's not more natural. Most people who don't vaccinate only want the best for their children, which is honourable. But if you ask yourself, am I putting the life of my child and other children at risk by not vaccinating against measles? The sad answer is yes. Yes, you are. Let's not play the blame game though. Let's work together and eradicate this virus. Together, we can get rid of these dreadful monsters and consign them to their rightful place, the history books.
All right. So, human body system. Cool. Here's what I need you to do. I gave you a body system interaction sheet. Like I said, you need to know how these all interact with one another. So, what you're going to do is you're going to take one of those 11. We're going to slide number 2. Slide number 2 has all 11 listed. You're going to take those 11 that are listed, and you're going to use those, and you're going to put multiple different types how the two are interacting. Like number 1 says these two systems work together to help fetuses grow and develop. So, where do fetuses grow? What system? Reproductive. And what other thing helps the reproductive system continue? The endocrine. You'll see how that works? So you find two systems, and you gotta know how they relate to each other. We did not cover the reproductive system in here, but again, the idea of the reproductive system is to make new offspring. Okay? Again, that's also the idea with fitness as well. Okay? So you need to, environmental fitness. You need to make sure you get this done. You've got about 6 more minutes left in class. You probably could get it done. You really got to it.